Alright folks, plenty to get through today as we move deeper into the week, and the summer months roll on. But let me start with a bit of good news that should lift the spirits of every Celtic supporter out there. Believe it or not, we are now just 2.5 weeks away from seeing the Hoops back in action. Yes, you heard me right, only 17 days stand between us and Celtic's first preseason fixture. A trip to face Queen's Park, that first glimpse of the team returning to the pitch after the break, is always something to look forward to. You can already feel that familiar buzz starting to build as the countdown continues. In the meantime, with no Celtic matches on the immediate horizon, many of us have been keeping half an eye on the FIFA Club World Cup. It's been a bit of a mixed bag, hasn't it? No Celtic involvement, of course, but we're now more than a month removed from the Scottish Cup final, and let's be honest, we're all feeling that itch for some competitive football again. The Club World Cup has offered something to fill that gap, even if it comes with its fair share of skepticism and debate. 8 matches have been played so far, and if you've been following along, you'll know opinions are split. Whenever a new competition like this kicks off, there's bound to be some level of doubt. Plenty of valid concerns have been raised. 2. People are talking about the heavy Saudi Arabian influence on the tournament. The sheer volume of football players are being asked to play, the complete lack of a proper summer break for some of the top stars in the game. It's understandable why some supporters are questioning the motives and the format. Still, putting all that aside and focusing purely on the football, I have to admit, I've enjoyed bits of it so far. Sure, there have been a couple of dreadful games and a couple of goalless draws, but even the tournament opener between Inter Miami and Al Ahly, despite ending 0-0, had its moments of entertainment. So yeah, I totally get why the competition has its critics, but if you're anything like me and you just love having football to watch over the summer, it's been decent enough viewing. Let me know what you all think. Are you enjoying it or giving it a miss? Speaking of Celtic connections, I did spot one small link to the tournament. Odin Diogo Holm's side Lillestrøm had their opening match earlier against Chelsea. Unfortunately for them, it ended in defeat, and Holm didn't even make it off the bench. Not ideal for him, but still worth keeping an eye on how things develop for him over there. Now, if you're sitting there wondering whether Celtic could ever realistically take part in a future Club World Cup, your first reaction is probably a flat out no, and honestly, I wouldn't blame you. It feels like we're miles away from that kind of level, especially when you look at the heavyweight clubs currently involved. But stick with me for a minute, because after doing a bit of digging, it's actually not quite as far-fetched as it first seems. This all came up in one of the group chats I'm part of. Shout out to my mate Gamber for planting the seed that got me looking deeper into this. Let me break it down as simply as possible without going on too long. So UEFA has 12 spots in total for European teams at the Club World Cup. That's out of a total of 32 teams worldwide. And this allocation system will remain the same for the next edition in 2029. Here's how it works. Each Champions League winner over a 4-year cycle qualifies automatically. So with Paris Saint-Germain winning the most recent Champions League, they've already secured their place for 2029. The next 3 winners over the next 3 seasons will join them. After that, the remaining 8 UEFA spots will go to the best performing teams in the Champions League over those 4 seasons. This is based purely on results in the Champions League itself, not the Europa League or the Conference League, and it operates on a points system, totally separate from the regular UEFA coefficient rankings. That means it's only relevant for teams consistently involved in the Champions League group stages and beyond. So apologies to Rangers fans, but the Europa League and Conference League results won't count towards this. The more games you win and the further you progress, the more points you stack up. It's a cumulative table that determines who grabs those 8 additional places. Now I know what you're thinking. Even with 8 remaining spots, how on earth does Celtic get close to that? We're talking about the biggest and richest clubs in Europe here, but here's where it gets interesting. There's a rule that limits each country to a maximum of 2 teams in the competition. That's a huge leveler when you consider how many strong clubs come from countries like England, Spain, Germany, and Italy. For example, Liverpool, despite finishing 8th in the point standings for this current Club World Cup cycle, missed out because England already had 2 teams qualified. That opened the door for a team like Porto to sneak in instead. In fact, looking further down the standings for this edition, Red Bull Salzburg made it in finishing 18th in the UEFA rankings for the qualifying cycle. How did they do it? 3 group stage appearances and 1 trip to the round of 16. In the Champions League over 4 seasons. Solid, yes, but hardly world-beating stuff. When you think about it, that's not a million miles away from what Celtic could potentially achieve with a bit of consistency. So here's the scenario. If Celtic can replicate the kind of form we showed last season in Europe, and continue to build on that over the next few years, it's not completely unthinkable. Getting into the league phase of the Champions League again this coming season would be a great start. If we can do that and then maintain that level for 2 or 3 more seasons, there's every chance we could climb into that top 20 of UEFA's four-year points table. And remember, because of the 2-team Perkentry rule, there's always a chance for clubs from smaller leagues to sneak in if the bigger nations max out their quotas early. Just for reference, looking at the very early table for the 2029 Club World Cup qualification cycle, Paris Saint-Germain are already listed as qualified with plenty of other familiar names filling up the top spots. As of now, Celtic aren't there yet, but after our performances last season, if we were to qualify for the league phase again this year, we'd be in the mix, at least hovering around that top 20 mark. Obviously, staying consistent and reaching at least the top 24 of the Champions League over multiple seasons is a massive ask for Celtic. Last year's fixture list was relatively kind to us, and duplicating or improving on that won't be easy, but still it's not impossible. If somehow we could manage to reach the league phase in the next 3 consecutive seasons, and maybe even sneak into the knockout rounds once or twice, that would rack up valuable points. And with the 2-team Perkentry limit keeping the door ajar for clubs like us, who knows, the idea of Celtic playing in a Club World Cup might not be as ridiculous as it sounds right now. And just to add a bit more fuel to the fire, there's already talk that FIFA may expand the competition even further to 48 teams for the edition after 2029. If that happens, the door opens even wider for clubs like ours. Realistically, am I saying Celtic will be at the next Club World Cup? Probably not. But if we can build some momentum in Europe, replicate what we did last season, and do it again for the next couple of years, we'll at least have our name in the conversation, and that's a start. Switching gears a bit now, let's talk about something more immediate and very relevant to Celtic's transfer business. There's been an interesting development regarding Hayato Inamura, the young Japanese defender we mentioned briefly yesterday. Reports coming straight from Japan, specifically from Spanichi, suggest that Celtic are closing in on signing the big rookie center-back from Albirex Niigata. According to multiple sources, their negotiations are going smoothly, and an official contract is expected to be signed following a medical check, which would take place here in Scotland. Whenever you start seeing reports like this coming from both the Scottish media and the Japanese side of things, you know there's likely some real weight behind it. This was exactly the case with players like Rio had it in the past. If you remember, long before things were confirmed on the Celtic end, the Japanese media had already more or less accepted that Hayato would be making the move to Glasgow. It feels like something similar could be unfolding with Inamura now. The next step will probably be hearing that he's on a flight to Glasgow for that medical. Once we get to that stage, it'll be fair to say the deal is well on track. Out of curiosity, I went and had a look at him recently. Thanks to Optus Sport, we get access to the J1 League games. So I jumped onto the app and watched his most recent match for Niigata. They had a 1-0 win over Yokohama F. Marinos, which just happens to be Daisen Maeda's former team. Interestingly enough, Inamura was named man of the match in that game, which definitely grabbed my attention. I skipped through the match to get a sense of how he plays, and I have to say, he looks very comfortable on the ball. Of course, in Japan, defenders often get a bit more time and space to build play from the back, which is something he'll have to adjust to here in Scotland, but still his composure stood out. He's very left-footed and actually contributed with an assist for the winning goal in that match. Around 20 minutes from time, he picked up the ball deep in his own half and played an absolutely brilliant 6-yard diagonal pass right onto the feet of the wide right player. The winger then cut inside and scored a belter, but that initial pass from Inamura really showcased the range and accuracy he's got in his left foot. When you think back to some of our issues last season, especially in terms of progressing the ball from defense into midfield, it's easy to see why the club might be targeting someone like Inamura. Brendan Rodgers himself highlighted this problem after the League Cup final, when he substituted Austin Trusty at halftime, not for injury reasons, but because we weren't playing through the lines effectively enough. Liam Scales came on and did a more progressive job, and Rodgers was quite open about that after the match. So maybe that's what they see in Inamura, a ball-playing defender who could complement someone like Cameron Carter-Vickers, someone who could offer that left-footed balance and the kind of passing range that we've maybe been lacking. It's even tempting to draw a loose comparison to what Virgil van Dijk used to give us back in the day with those long sweeping passes from deep. positions. If this transfer does get completed, you can bet I'll be diving deeper into his games. The footage is all there for me to watch, and I might even check in with an old mate of mine who's been following Japanese football closely for years to get a better read on what we're getting. On the subject of center backs, there's been some fresh news from Poland about Marek Nawrocki. A report from Kanal Sport indicates that Nawrocki could be on his way to Pogoń Szczecin, who finished 4th in the Polish league last season. Their CEO Tan Kessler has come out and confirmed that discussions are ongoing between the club and Nawrocki's camp. It sounds like a loan deal is the most likely outcome here. Given that we're hearing direct quotes from the Polish club's CEO, it does feel like something is brewing. To be honest, I'm a bit disappointed by this development. I know it's become a slightly controversial opinion within the support, but I genuinely believe Nawrocki might be the second best center back we've currently got at the club. He never really got a proper run in the team. Towards the end of last season when he did play, I thought he looked composed and solid. His performance against Rangers at Celtic Park, even though it was in a losing effort, stood out to me as one of the better individual displays on the day. He was good against Aberdeen as well in the final match. I know Brendan Rodgers seems to have made up his mind about him for whatever reason, but it's still a shame to see him likely heading out on loan without really getting a fair crack at proving himself. There's not much we can do about that as fans though. The manager has made his decision. There's also been some chatter online about possible departures involving bigger names. I've seen the odd rumor about Cameron Carter-Vickers and Nicholas Kuhn being linked with moves away. RB Leipzig have been mentioned in connection with Kuhn, though there doesn't seem to be anything concrete to worry about at this stage. Let's be real, every summer we more or less accept that one key player will probably leave. That's been the pattern for the past few years, and to be honest, sometimes we've lost more than one. Personally, I think Rio Hayato looks like the most likely candidate to move on this window. The fact that the club seems to be moving quickly to secure a creative midfielder, with reports suggesting the Benjamin Nygren deal is fairly close, adds to that feeling. If Hayato does go, it'll be a blow, but it wouldn't be a complete surprise. As for Cameron Carter-Vickers, I really hope we manage to hold on to him. He's such a crucial part of our defensive setup. Losing him would be a massive setback. With Nicholas Kuhn, I'm a bit more relaxed. If we get the version of him that lit up the first half of last season, then great, he's a real asset. But there's no denying his form dropped off dramatically in the second half, so there's definitely a debate to be had about his consistency. Looking at the bigger picture, if we can get Nygren over the line, wrap up the Inamura deal, and also bring in someone like Paulo Bernardo permanently, that would represent a really positive start to the window. Then we could look at strengthening in other areas as needed. So that's where things stand for now. Plenty happening, and as always, I'll be keeping an eye on all the developments. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Whispers are growing loud around Parkhead, and the green half of Glasgow might just have a new name to chant. According to sources close to the club, Celtic could be on the verge of unveiling a midfield gem, the highly touted DEMIR TIKNAZ, in what insiders are already calling a move for the heir to Callum McGregor. While the club remains tight-lipped, the buzz is undeniable. TIKNAZ, a name that has started popping up with increasing frequency on fan forums and social media, is reportedly seen as a long-term solution to continue the legacy of McGregor, the heartbeat of Celtic's midfield for the better part of a decade. No official confirmation has emerged from Celtic Park, but rumor has it that the deal is all but done. DEMIR TIKNAZ is ours, claim some accounts with apparent inside knowledge, setting fire to speculation. Could this be another masterstroke from the Celtic scouting network? Described by those who've watched him closely as composed beyond his years, TIKNAZ is believed to bring a mix of tactical intelligence and technical finesse reminiscent of McGregor in his prime. Though still young, the potential is clear, and Celtic may have moved early to fend off competition from the continent. Of course, comparisons to McGregor don't come lightly. The current captain's influence on and off the pitch is monumental, but perhaps that's exactly why the club is acting now. There's talk that McGregor himself may have had a say in identifying his successor, recognizing in TIKNAZ a similar engine, leadership spark, and ability to dictate tempo. Skeptics naturally are urging caution. It wouldn't be the first time a new signing arrived in Glasgow with big expectations and even bigger boots to fill. But there's an air of quiet confidence around this one, as if the Hoops know they've unearthed something special. Time will tell if TIKNAZ lives up to the early hype. But for now, the rumor mill spins on, and the faithful are already dreaming of another midfield general to carry Celtic forward. Hello, fan, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.